Could you talk about China and its monetary system? You mentioned it briefly about why the US is so hostile right now, why Biden can't stop talking about competition and autocracy versus democracy. Could you talk about the differences in the monetary systems and how China treats finance? Because I think this is not really well understood and it has global implications, right? I think it has huge implications because I think there's a general shift in a direction of how do we address this flailing dollar-led economy, global economy, imperialism, and China's really at the center of this. So could you speak on this, if you would?
Well, what gets Americans so upset is that China's getting rich by doing exactly what the United States did in the 19th century. I've written a book, America's Protectionist Takeoff, where I describe the whole idea of American protectionism was tariff protection for its industry, government subsidized research and development, government subsidy of industry by having infrastructure as a fourth factor of production alongside land, labor, and capital. It was supposed to have public banking. So basically, China, like the United States, said, we want to raise the living standards of labor, not because of an abstract ideal, but because highly paid labor is more efficient labor. Highly paid labor is more educated, it's better fed, it's healthier. And the Americans in the 19th century pointed out that America was the highest paid labor in the world, but it was also the most productive, and high paid labor undersold pauper labor. Well, China began under Mao with you'd look at pictures back in the 50s and even early 60s, and you'd see masses of beggars. And I'd look at the pictures and I thought, how on earth are they going to solve this problem? Well, they actually did it. And China realized that in order to survive in the modern world, you had to have well-paid, well-housed, well-fed, well-educated labor, and they've done it. The difference is that where America had kept money creation in the hands of the Treasury ever since the Greenbacks in America's Civil War. Basically, the government created money. But in 1913, J.P. Morgan and the financial sector got together and they said, we've got to get government out of money and credit. If we can control money and credit, we can control the economy. So they convinced President Wilson to have the Federal Reserve. They said, we're not even going to let a Treasury official be on the Federal Reserve. We're going to move the Federal Reserve banks out of Washington. We're going to have the key bank in New York where Wall Street is. The ideal of a Federal Reserve is to make a centrally planned economy. And America is a much more centralized planned economy than China. But its centralized planning is on Wall Street by the financial sector, by the leading financial corporations, instead of the government. So whereas America took economic forward planning out of the hands of the government in 1913, China has kept the financial system in the hands of the government. That means that let's look at how these two countries create money in a different way. Since the Obama depression began in 2008, the Federal Reserve has created a tidal wave of credit all into the stock market and the bond market. All of this recent zero interest policy, this flooding, this $9 trillion of Federal Reserve credit has only been to support the banks, real estate prices, bond and stock prices, to support property prices. That's not what they do in China. Although the prosperity that China has created has increased housing prices, and there has been private credit increasing housing prices, China has kept money creation in the hands of the government itself, so that when the government creates money, it creates it to finance the creation of factories, plant and equipment, dams, transportation infrastructure, public housing. It doesn't create money to lend to financial speculators and stockholders to increase their holdings. It creates actual tangible means of production. Now, of course, if you create tangible means of production and employ labor and have high speed railroads and research laboratories, you're going to overtake countries that are busy closing down the factories and cutting back research and development because they want quick payouts. The chief public utility to be kept in the public domain, China realizes and has realized from the beginning, is the banking system and credit creation. Even so, there's still private credit creation to some extent, and they've also let some participation by American Wall Street firms such as Goldman Sachs, because it's hoped it wants to avoid war, and it hopes that it can, by providing opportunities for financial profit to American companies, that will somehow convince Wall Street to resist the Biden administration's race hatred of China and the attempt to move towards a new war against China. Obviously, the assumption that China made that seemed rational at the time was, well, American economy is run by Wall Street, so if we can have Wall Street say we're doing just fine with China, everything's going to be okay. But the Wall Street and the Federal Reserve Bank and the Treasury have not even been consulted on this year's war, NATO war with Russia in the Ukraine. It's Blinken and Biden and the neocons basically are waging a war with that is sidelined finance, and the result is to create the present 20% crash in stock market prices and the parallel decline in bond prices. So finance capitalism is intrinsically self-destructive, whereas industrial capitalism is self-expansive. Finance capitalism is self-destructive, and that's exactly what's happening today, and that's what China wants to avoid by basically following the logic of what used to be called industrial capitalism, but everybody said by the 19th century, final decades, people were saying, "Oh, how is capitalism evolving toward?" Everybody used the word socialism. And it wasn't only the Marxists that were using the word socialism. There were Christian socialists, libertarian socialists, anarchist socialists, all different kinds of socialists. The recognition was you have to have the government sponsorship of a balanced and fair economic development, and you have to prevent people from getting rich, not by providing any productive service at all, but just by being good rip-off artists. And that's basically what finance capitalism is, a opportunity for rip-off artists to get rich by taking money away from the 99% into their own hands.